Welcome everyone. Good morning. I actually made it to a morning. It's pretty quiet here because no one's awake and my husband went golfing already. Anywho, I have a few minutes before my little TK son graduates and elevates to kindergarten. And I am drinking my keto coffee in the morning. Yup. I know they have new packaging, but I still have the old, and I'm not gonna undo and leave away the packaging. Anyway, okay, so I have a few things to talk about, actually, too. And one is American Soul, and the other is I'll leave Insecure last. American Soul is on BET. First of all, let me pause and say BET is, as if you don't know, BET is extremely quick to cancel a show, right? So it's like, who knows uh if so it's if the show's coming back, and so it's very difficult to get attached to a show because you're not sure if it's coming back or not. And so that's number one. Okay. Number two, I was kind of surprised that American Soul is coming back or came back. And it's clear that American Soul is concerned about getting the time period right because it's set in the 70s. And so they spend a ton of time with making the costuming, the setting, the set look like it's the 70s, and they do an impeccable job with that. I think they do a really decent job with the writing, so I'm not complaining with that. And, a lot of people from us BET watchers know that BET is not always the best when it comes to making sure that part of it is right. So I at least can acknowledge that the setting is good and the writing is good. Problem number one. This, if you don't know, this is about Don Cornelius, and I think that it's important to talk about Don Cornelius and what he did with Soul Train, because Soul Train is a very important part of not just Black history, but all of our history, right? And so I'm all for us having, sharing and doing it, but then a part of me is like, we probably should have had a a mini series, like how they did with Bobby Brown's story and stuff like that. I think that would have probably been more appropriate, because the New Edition story, because they took a lot of time and detail in the casting, because the show's casting is atrocious, and they tried Patti LaBelle on this when they did the Patti LaBelle cover of the Billboard magazine. I was like, Patti LaBelle looked a lot better than that. Like, so part of these people, I don't even know who they are. I was like, I'm gonna need for you to write underneath their names, these are the pips, so that I can know who these people are. I need for you to write underneath their name, this is Patti LaBelle, this is Gladys Knight, because they look nothing like the people. So Don Cornelius is another problematic. Okay. Don Cornelius, though, is another issue, because Don Cornelius is a guy who they portray him as being egotistical, rude. They don't portray him kindly as well. And I know that his son is involved. And I mean, I don't know if, and the way that he portrays him as a father is kind of not very well. I mean, and I'm not sure. I'm sure that there is some of this is probably trying to be as accurate as possible, but I mean, the man is dead. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how this works towards making Don Cornelius the brand, but it's something to consider and think about. Remember, I have my, you can get this from Crate and Barrel for like $5. No, swear, my son is awake. Okay, so let me go pretty quickly. And see, I like it as an iced coffee. It's so much better than hot coffee. Okay. So I'm not saying don't watch it. I'm just saying that this is not what I suspected. And I think that we could have done better to treat his legacy better. Okay. Insecure. This season finale was my whole life. When I had, and so I will say it's my whole life in two ways. First, Tiffany, who had the baby, and she is clearly going through a postpartum depression. And I will admit, like, when I had my second kid, I had like no, like, I felt still me, still balancing and everything. When I had my first kid, I was not ready for the level of isolation, the level of like, I felt like my husband was still, his friends were still around. I felt that he could go out whenever, and I couldn't go out unless I had my kid with me. And I didn't have anyone to watch the kid if it wasn't something outside of work. My daughter, no one would watch my daughter if it wasn't attached to kind of a workspace. And so it was really, really frustrating. I mean, I'll never forget, I think Hayden was 2, and she had a little iPad, and 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 Henry was supposed to come home so I can go to the dentist, and I was supposed to be at the dentist at a set time, and he came home at the time that I was supposed to be at the dentist. And I mean, when he came home, he found me, well, Hayden actually I didn't realize that Hayden was recording me. I was in our bedroom in a ball on the other side of the thing, just like crying, because I couldn't even get a break to go to the dentist. And if it wasn't like, yeah, I can get a break to go to work, but I couldn't get a break even to get to the dentist. And I just, like, I would daydream and dream about, what if I just left? What if I just took all the money out and just bounced and just disappeared, and it's okay, like, and just go away and not see anybody, and maybe I'll come back, maybe I'll write a letter, like, I mean, and just change my name. Like, I had an elaborate scheme to just leave. And so I totally get Tiffany. Like, I totally understand how sometimes the only way to deal with it is just to bounce. I never did what she did, but I sometimes just turn my phone off, and stuff like that. Okay, number 2, Issa. And I totally forgot that this was the same storyline oh my gosh, what was that show on Channel 5? The Game. And with Janelle. And I totally forgot about that, but my boyfriend and I at the time, my now husband was boyfriend, we broke up, and within like 3 or 4 months, we got back together. I knew that he had someone pregnant, and because I heard, and I was waiting for him to tell me, And one day she came over to my house, knocked on the door. She didn't stay. And I did not let her in because I was like, you need to tell me what this woman wants to tell me on the other side of the door. And so he said it. And I was like, okay, so what are we gonna do? Like, what are you doing? Like, what's gonna happen? And then, I mean, that night I did cry, and he held me all night, and it was hard, and so I can understand if Issa says I'll stay. I can also understand if Issa says I'm not staying, because it's not easy to stay. It is not easy to stay. And I'm going to be honest, it is much easier to go. And because it even in the most, well, in my case, it was definitely not the most mature. She was definitely not the most mature person. And at times it was like, well, can we try to be copacetic? And it's like, no, we've only talked once in person. And I think that was, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I don't even remember. And I have absolutely no desire to have I do. I do have a desire to have a one-on-one conversation with her, but I will probably not wait until the little girl's 18 so I can say what I want to say without recourse. But I get it. And I don't like how Condola handled it, in the sense that she could have been cool. Like, what does Issa have to do with anything? Like, Issa had, I know it's just awkward. So I guess that's the reason why you have to be dismissive and treat Issa the way that she was. But I didn't understand what was the motivation for that. And, I mean, because you didn't take him seriously anyway. He was just a dude you were with at one point. And so I guess I don't get Condola at all. But I mean, both shows, I mean, I'm gonna tell you this about Insecure. Like, each season seems to be getting better and better, and it's not getting worse. I mean, the directing on this episode was so good. I love that scene where he tells her that she's pregnant. But anyway, as a whole, I need to wrap up. My kids are going bizarre in the background. So have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow, because tomorrow is all about the 30 for 30. I didn't talk about it last week, and I didn't have time to talk about it today. So we got to talk about the 30 for 30 with Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa, and what I do have, I have some real big qualms with that one, how they did it. I think it was, I'm not getting into it. And then Bruce Lee was last week. So we definitely have to talk about both of those. Anyway, have a great afternoon, and I will see you tomorrow.